Hi everyone, I prefer to keep my identity, so I'll use an alias. I'll call myself AS Bushido. I am very new to all of this. I wouldn't normally create a YouTube video of myself, and I suppose I haven't considering it's audio, but you get the idea, I hope. Anyway, I have Asperger syndrome, sensory processing disorder, and OCD. As you can probably tell from the way I'm speaking, I'm reading this from a written piece. I decided to come prepared with a written document so that it could help me to get what I say across the right way. Asperger syndrome is a neurological condition and can affect your life in various ways. It can be very difficult coping with everyday life when you have Asperger's alone, never mind about sensory issues and OCD. Socializing is made all the more difficult. When you're on the spectrum, you can have problems with social cues and can take things literally. I myself have a great deal of problems with socializing, believe me. I found it extremely difficult finding friends at school, and to be honest, I still do now. As you can see, I am very shy and prefer to use audio recordings rather than a video of myself. That proves just how worried I am about all this. I wasn't diagnosed with Asperger syndrome, but autism spectrum disorder, though I think it's Asperger's. Anyway, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 14 years old, after a breakdown I had at school. That breakdown happened due to a horrible incident that involved the head of year interrogating me in front of two classes. Long story. I may talk about it in another audio recording in time. I'll see how it goes. Sensory processing disorder, or SPD for short, is a disorder that affects the five senses of touch, smell, taste, sound, and sight. I am mainly affected by touch and taste, though a couple others may still affect me, but to a lesser degree. Now, imagine for a moment what life could be like with sensory issues, or in my case, focused on difficulties with touch and taste. I am overly sensitive or hypersensitive to both, and sometimes hyposensitive with taste, as I tend to use a lot of spices on my food. Hypersensitive means that I am more overly defensive of a feeling, but hyposensitive means I crave it more, so therefore if I add spices to my food, it's because I need that extra flavor. Anyway, as I was saying, if you were to imagine what life would be like with touch and taste difficulties, I find most fruit and vegetables to be extremely difficult to get used to. I am very picky with foods because of it, and it makes finding the right diet for me very difficult. I am also vegetarian, so you can imagine how restricted I am. As I am also affected by touch, I find slight brushes against my skin to carry a horrible tingly sensation. I don't know how to best describe it but that, and I think due to my OCD, I end up washing the area that was bruised, or I keep that area away from me until I do. OCD can be about routines. That can be an obsession, like for instance, constantly checking a tap is turned off, or a door is locked, or having to go through a door their right way, and if they fail, they'll feel they have to keep repeating it over and over again until they get it right. OCD could also make you avoid germs and wash constantly due to a fear of them. My OCD affects me in a way that gets very close to my sensory issues. The reason why I say that is because the feeling of someone brushing against me gives me the annoying tingling sensation, and I have to wash the feeling away, not the germs. With taste or food, I find that I have to inspect each food to my satisfaction. The food has to look, smell, feel, and taste right for it to pass my tongue. That is another reason why I am very picky with foods. It might be connected to OCD, but to be honest, I wonder if they are so closely connected that you can't have SPD without OCD. Also, OCD affects me alongside OCD in treading on something slimy and disgusting like slugs, snails, animal feces on the pavement. If I step on any, I have to immediately wash the underside of my shoes when I get home. It's a nightmare. Personally, I found school to be very difficult. I felt it was more like a prison. I couldn't concentrate on my work for one, because of disruption in the class, and also because there were so many other people in the class. The reason why that bothered me was because I couldn't focus on learning when I am overcrowded. I was also very alienated at school because I couldn't fit in with others. As I say, I was more the ghost in the class with a bullseye sign strapped to my forehead. A bullseye sign because all of the bullies that singled me out because I was different, they must have seen the difference and used that against me. And I've never forgotten it to this day. Bullying because of difference is a very disgusting part of society, isn't it? Discrimination comes when someone bullies another because they are not like everyone else. I was always doing my best to be as kind, honest, and genuine as possible. I also used to allow others in the class to borrow my stationery, even to my bullies. I opened the door to allow others through and gave food away in my lunchbox. All of that was in an attempt to find genuine friends, but it never worked. I was alone for most of school life, and I hate it with a vengeance, always have done. Personally, I couldn't care less how I might have looked to my bullies. I was always doing my best to stay true to myself, and even when I got bullied, I wouldn't bully them in return. I know about the saying, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, to take vengeance on those that caused you to suffer. I know a lot of people on the spectrum find sayings difficult to understand, but I managed to learn a few over time, so that doesn't bother me too much. Anyway, in spite of knowing the saying, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, I never decided to take out my pain onto my bullies. I would not stoop to their level. I thought, I am not going to bully others to satisfy myself. I will do my best to live a life with as little regrets as possible. And I stay true to that today, though life didn't really play out the way I wanted it to. I know of a couple of things that happened to me in primary school. When assemblies came around, we all had to make our way into the assembly hall, and the head teacher then spoke to us. He said various things, but one of them was, "Do unto others as you want to be done to yourself." Now to everyone else that may be fine, but to me, I saw those words as nothing more than rhetoric nonsense. Rhetoric nonsense because, as I went through every day of class, I constantly got bullied, and yet I did nothing to hurt them. Did they want to bully me? Did they want me to bully them in return? I would not. I was not cruel at school, and I stay true to that to this day. Another was that we sang hymns in the assemblies, but I felt very alone, and the concept of singing about positive meanings only made me feel more depressed. That is a common misconception a lot of people make. A misconception because I know life isn't as simple as that. Not when you're on the spectrum, least of all for myself. It's denial, fake, and I can't stand people being false, as it makes me feel like I'm talking to actors and actresses and not genuine people. Another thing they introduced in primary school was something called a buddy bench. Now this buddy bench was a brightly coloured bench which was designed for those alone to sit on it and for the other children to come up to you to make friends. Now again, to everyone else, that may have seemed fine, but to me I laughed at the sight of it. It was because the fact of a brightly coloured bench is pretty much like a magnet for bullies, as a moth to a lamp. They would see the bench, see a sitting target, me for example, and completely disregard the principle of becoming friends and instead would bully me. Anyway, I'll leave it at that for now. As I said, this is very new to me. I've tried contacting various forums, but I decided to start my own YouTube audio videos. I hope that you can understand where I'm coming from, and thank you for listening.